Welcome, movie lovers. This is our review of Doctor Strange, and it's going to be a spoiler review. We just saw the film last night, so we're going to go over our positives, negatives, and give it an overall score out of 10 while going into a little bit of detail. Before I get started, let me introduce us. I am Jacob Bartley from Apocalypse Movies, and this is Jake Berlin. What's going on?
Not much, man. Excited to talk about Doctor Strange.
And Gio Ramos. You know us three from the podcast. How's it going, Gio?
Good. How are you guys doing?
So yeah, we all went to IMAX and watched Doctor Strange. Finally, it's here. And yeah, I'm so excited. So let's just give our overall general impressions, and then we'll jump into some details about our positives and our negatives. So Jake, you're just in your first impression leaving the theater.
Wow. Obviously, a visual spectacle. It's something that's been talked about for a very, very long time. It's going to change the game for Marvel, be something completely unique, and it definitely was. I think that I don't know if you remember, but after the first sequence of the movie, I turned to you and I said I was dizzy from watching the movie.
Yeah. Oh, that opening
I was
sequence
dizzy
was
just
amazing.
from the 3D and all this stuff going on, and it's so different from anything Marvel's done, and I thought it was just so much fun, and you could tell that people involved were having a lot of fun doing it, and Scott Derrickson, being a horror guy, did a fantastic job directing his first big, huge budget film. So I was very impressed. I went in with very high expectations, but I left with them pretty much blown out of the water. So all thumbs up for Doctor Strange.
Gio, overall impressions of the film.
That's the word I'll use, impressed. Because you look at a movie like Doctor Strange, and anyone who knows the comics, he's so out of this world. The stuff that he does, the Sorcerer Supreme. So I was very impressed with the visuals. The story, it's very formulaic, would you say?
It's something we've seen before from
Something
Marvel.
we've seen before, but what separates this movie from the rest are A, the visuals, B, the performances. I mean, you have probably one of the best casts in a Marvel movie ever. And lastly, Doctor Strange himself, Benedict Cumberbatch, who really, he was Marvel's second choice, but that turned out to be a blessing in disguise. He really owned the role, and he's another character that Marvel successfully introduced and can't wait to see more of.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the film. I think it's great for what it is. The visuals are obviously the thing that stands out. I think Benedict Cumberbatch was the perfect choice to play this role. I cannot imagine another actor in the role. I was trying to think about it earlier, some of the names that were thrown around before, like Joaquin Phoenix, and I think Johnny Depp was thrown around a little bit, but Cumberbatch was perfect for this role, and I'm so glad to see him going forward in the MCU. I actually liked the story. It's very fast-paced, and it's something I really enjoyed. There are some negatives, maybe regarding the villain and some other things that are involved, but overall, I thought Marvel did it again. They knocked it out of the park again. So let's talk about some specific things that we like. Jake, go ahead and lead that off.
Yeah, you guys have mentioned about Benedict Cumberbatch. This is something we haven't seen him do before. Very fun and kind of outgoing and energetic. You could tell he was having a really, really good time in this role. And, when he was first casted, I wasn't a fan of it. I thought it was too safe for Marvel.
Oh, you did say that.
I thought it was
the
safest choice.
I remember that.
It was the easy one.
Yeah.
It was the perfect choice. But hey, it was the great choice, and he knocked it out of the park. And much more funny than I've ever seen it before. And going forward, it's going to be a very exciting character, especially with the whole Avengers thing going on and who's going to be on the team and whatnot. So Benedict Cumberbatch, perfect choice. Marvel again did a great job casting. The story, I'm on Jacob's side. I thought it was really simple enough to kind of just keep us engaged, and it was good enough for people to understand, especially with everything going on as far as visuals go. You mentioned fast paced. It just went straight into it.
Oh yeah.
We saw him as a surgeon, going right after it, and the car accident happened within like 15 minutes of the movie.
Yeah.
And then we see him in Nepal learning the mystical arts and everything. So I really enjoyed that. The movie, I think, was runtime to 2:10, but it felt like an hour and 45-minute movie.
Yeah,
because it moved so quick.
Yeah,
it was very entertaining.
It didn't feel like it was. It didn't feel like it was overrun or there was too much in there. I thought it was perfectly done as far as runtime goes. The supporting cast is fantastic. Gio mentioned it, but Rachel McAdams, Tilda Swinton, Chiwetel Ejiofor, Mads Mikkelsen. And speaking of Mads Mikkelsen, I thought he was a great villain. And he ended up not being the ultimate villain that was in the film, which was kind of cool because Marvel has had this problem with villains. Dormammu is a badass, and I think that you mentioned it earlier, but he can be an Avengers villain, and I think he's going to be something big going forward. He's not done. Doctor Strange may have won, but there's other ways for him to get Earth, and I think it's going to come to a heat at some point in the Avengers future. So there's many positives for this film. Obviously the visuals, and that'll be touched on multiple times, but the main one is Benedict Cumberbatch, the story. I really, really enjoy the villain this time.
Yeah, Gio, any positives for you?
I echo everything he says. I thought, for me, it's the action. It's unlike anything that we've seen in a Marvel movie, and that was really important to me. It's a little bit of Inception meets Harry Potter for myself. Just the way the camera angles are, the visuals. I don't know. You watch this movie and you're like, how the hell did they pull this off?
Yeah,
so
crazy.
It's really impressive. And the last thing I'll say is just how the supporting cast plays off of Benedict Cumberbatch. You see a little bit of different parts of Stephen Strange through each supporting character. With Rachel McAdams as the quote-unquote love interest. You'll find out in the movie why I say that. And how Chiwetel Ejiofor plays Baron Mordo, the guy who is kind of, looking after Doctor Strange, helping him, with his training. And then you have Tilda Swinton as a great character, the ancient one, and how she just, like, here's Doctor Strange, here's how he thinks and everything, and kind of just makes him see things in a different light. And so for myself, the supporting cast, it was all great, and it just elevated the movie.
Yeah, for me, my main positive is Benedict Cumberbatch as Doctor Strange, but some of the main characters were really strong. Like, I know Rachel McAdams had a very small part, and I love that they didn't go full-on love interest. It was just more of a friend that he really cares about, and there is some type of romantic connection there, but it's more of this is like the closest person to him in a way. And because we don't see any other like family members or friends that he has. And then the other characters, like Mordo was actually a really good character and very strong throughout the beginning to the end. He had a lot of character development. Stuff happens to where his character changes by the end of the film, and I thought that was handled very well. And Tilda Swinton's the Ancient One I thought was really great too, because you meet her at first, and she's this badass sorcerer, the Sorcerer Supreme. She has it all figured out. She's the leader of this group. But then you find out later in the film that she's a very flawed character, and she's not as confident as she plays it off in the beginning. And there's things going on with her, like using the dark energy to survive throughout centuries. And you find out so that she's a very flawed character. And I thought those three characters were handled very well. I thought for the most part the comedy worked. For the most part, we heard that there were rewrites going in to bring comedic elements to it. I think you could have made this film very serious and dark, but that's not what Marvel is. They have a consistent tone throughout their films, and I thought it worked well for Doctor Strange. And just all the sorcerer elements, whether it's the powers, the shape-shifting of the buildings, the objects that they take on, like the cloak. The cloak was hilarious. The cloak of levitation was like a character in its own.
Saved him like 7 times.
Yeah, without the cloak, he's dead already. So that was great, and just the way they introduced all these new elements in the Marvel universe, all this mysticism that we haven't seen yet, was handled very well. So those are some of my main positives. So like every film, Doctor Strange does have some negatives. So I'll go ahead and just start this one off. I don't know his name per se, but it's the Mads Mikkelsen character, right? It's Calais or something like that. I think. All right. So whether we're talking Mordo or I think he's the main villain, Calais, or Mads Mikkelsen's character. Callius. He is technically the main villain of the film, even though you could say there's maybe 3 villains in this movie in a way. And I'm not saying that is a bad thing. I liked how they played that, how they're kind of 3 separate villains doing 3 different things, serving 3 different purposes. But him as the main villain was a disappointment for me. His only motivation was to live eternal and to be immortal and make the whole earth immortal. I don't think that was handled very well and wasn't explained very well. And some of the comedy was like a little bit forced in a way. And other than that, I really don't have any huge negatives. But I was excited for Mads Mikkelsen to play this villain, and overall, it was another disappointing villain for me on Marvel's side. So, Jake, you have any negatives?
I'll touch on the comedy. I think that some of it, like you said, was forced. It was just kind of thrown in there to get a little bit more comedy. The comedy was consistent. You could tell kind of where they wanted to make adjustments as the film with reshoots. Kind of just from me personally, I didn't think there was enough Rachel McAdams or Benedict Wong.
I
really
agree.
wanted more.
I
of their
agree. There
characters.
should have been more of them.
And,
Yeah.
I like that they kept Rachel McAdams' character within Earth and not bring her into the mystical side of everything. I really appreciate that, but I just wanted more of her.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
I also wanted more Wong. We saw him in important parts, but there just wasn't enough of his character. It seems like he's going to be a huge part going
Oh
forward
yeah,
for the character.
He'll be back.
So that's a big part. Again, a lot of it's just nitpicking, but those are kind of the two biggest things for me. It's a fantastic film. It's a fantastic standalone film. I think that Scott Derrickson did a great job on this movie, really keeping the flaws down and really elevating the film. So,
Gio, any negatives for you?
Yeah. Okay. So you mentioned the comedy. At one point I was asking myself, is this a comedy or what? Because like through the reshoots and rewrites, they did add a lot more comedy.
Yeah.
And I understand that. Doctor Strange, he's a little more out of this. He's more out of this world than Thor is. So you have to, make it fun for audiences, and I guess they accomplished that. But I was just like, okay, this is maybe a little bit too much at times. I agree with you, Jake. The Rachel McAdams. Marvel continues to cast these great actresses, and in the female supporting roles, they're always hit and miss. I wanted to see her have a little bit more. I mean, if you think about it in the grand scheme, it's like, okay, she's there just to, she had her moments. Mm-hmm. She definitely had her moments, but I felt like she was underserved. Mm-hmm. Like, maybe there's more to her role.
Yeah.
That was probably cut.
I hope she's back. I hope
she
back.
will.
Oh, yeah.
In a Doctor Strange movie.
Yeah, I think she'll be back.
Yeah.
And the last thing I'll mention is that I felt like, in the beginning, before his accident, I liked what I was seeing. I was getting a little bit of Steve Jobs, Fassbender, Kate Winslet, kind of, how their relationship was, back and forth. I wanted to see a little bit more of that. I felt like we didn't get enough, or I felt, personally for me, a little shortchanged. And, overall, it's just, as far as origin stories goes, it kind of went by. It was like, you just go with it, and I wanted to see maybe a little bit more of that Batman Begins, where he's like, continuing to, learn more, because at one point he's learning from Chiwetel Ejiofor, and the next moment he's standing up to the bad guy who just went toe to toe with the Ancient One. It's like, okay, how powerful did this guy get? I just wanted to see a little bit more, but overall, it's for myself, it felt a little bit less than what I wanted, but hey, it's still one of the better origin stories in comic movies. So
nice. So let's wrap this up with just our closing statements on the film and an overall score out of 10. We'll start with you, Jake Berlin.
Yeah, again, I'm pretty impressed by this film. I tweeted out multiple times last night that I couldn't stop thinking about it. We just talked about we want to go see it again as soon as possible.
I can't wait.
I recommend seeing it the biggest screen possible, and definitely 3D. It's one of the better 3D movies out there. I know 3D is kind of a big thing right now, but this one definitely deserves a 3D. So I highly recommend it, and I'm going to give Doctor Strange a 9 out of 10.
Wow. All right, Gio, closing statements and overall score out of 10.
Closing statements. Go watch Doctor Strange. It's unlike any comic book movie that you will ever see. It's definitely a cinematic experience. It's worth watching in 3D. The performances are great. You'll laugh. You'll have a mind trip. It's fun. It's a lot of fun. I will give it, I'm going to go 8.5 for Doctor Strange. 8.5.
Yeah, I obviously enjoyed the film. I love superhero movies, and I was really excited for this character. I think it's a very fast-paced and high-energy, high-comedy ride, and it's very entertaining. Like, I think the whole family can go see this movie. It's not, there's nothing too edgy in it. Like, it's not even as dark as a Winter Soldier or a Civil War movie. Like, it's lighter than that, and it is very fun, and the visuals are what you go for. I don't even like 3D, but go see Doctor Strange in 3D. I think it's really worth it. Again, Marvel never really focuses on their villains, so I think that's the weakest point in this film again, but I don't mind because it's about the hero, it's about Doctor Strange, and I thought they knocked this character out of the park. And as far as me judging this film for what it is, I'm actually going to give it an 8 out of 10. I thought it could have been better, but I thought it was great for what it was, and I'm overall really satisfied with the film. All right, well, that's going to wrap up our spoilers review of Doctor Strange. I want to thank Jake for joining us today. Where can they find you online, Jake?
Twitter, Instagram at Qui-Gon Jake, apocalypsemovies.com every day, and check out the Padawan podcast.
Oh, yeah, we'll have a new episode up pretty soon. Gio, where can they find you online?
You guys can find me on Twitter at GioRamos24. Check out apocalypsemovies.com, and I'll see you later.
And you can find me, Jacob Bartley, on Twitter at Jacob Bartley _ on this Apocalypse Movies YouTube channel, host of the Movie News Podcast, always on the Padawan Podcast with Jake Berlin here and putting out movie reviews. Thank you again for listening. Until next time, take care.